Hello viewers, welcome back to another session with regard to lifespan development, where today we are going to discuss about theories of adjustment to aging. Here you might be knowing that the theoretical perspectives with regard to old age is an important concern in order to adjust with the aging process. And here we are going to discuss about a few objectives where we learn about a few theoretical perspectives on aging. And here we are going to talk about two important popularly known theories or perspectives of aging, which are one of the older perspectives. The first one we are going to discuss is about disengagement theory. The second important perspective is called as activity theory. And apart from these two older perspectives, we are also going to discuss about the more recent perspective on aging, which is also known as continuity theory of aging. Let us discuss what exactly we mean by disengagement theory of aging. Now, to begin with, the people who developed this theory were called Cummings and Henry in the year 1950, but it was actually published in the year 1960s. The theory was actually conducted among US older adults in between the age group of 50 to 90 years, and they found that they had a logical argument stating that why older adults would naturally disengage from the society. We understand that as an individual ages and there is a decline in the relationship with the social world, and we can attribute all these factors with respect to physical deterioration or the psychological or cognitive declination. This particular theory is considered to be one of the earliest and also the most controversial theories of aging. Now, this particular controversies we will be discussing at the end of the theory in terms of its limitations, but for now we are going to discuss about why exactly it is considered to be a theory of disengagement. It is because the individual develops disengagement, that is, the individual stops engaging with the social world. And there is a mutual withdrawal between society and the older adult. It is because the society equally accepts the disengagement of the elderly. The society considers that now the elderly people are at rest and they need to take care of themselves. As a result, they are less privileged in terms of any occupation or any social interaction related activities. As a result, the older people are more preoccupied with themselves, with their own inner lives. If you think of Erikson's last stage of psychosocial development of personality, it is also indicative that the individual at that particular age group develops either ego integrity or despair. The ego integrity concept is a successful aspect of the individual's entire lifespan, whereas the despair is an unsuccessful life experience of the individual. Therefore, it is all about the individual's personal attributes and his life experiences, where we can say that the individual stops engaging with the society and spends more time with his self in terms of accumulation of his experiences or being nostalgic or away from the social environment. Further, this theory also emphasizes that as the individual grows older, they have a tendency to decrease in their roles and activities. Say for example, if an elderly person is retired, now he is no longer able to work in a particular organization and he is restricted to either at home or sometimes due to illness also they are restricted to a particular place. As a result, there is a change in their roles and activities. It is also important that they have to adapt according to the age related activities, but here the individual is disengaging himself from the social world according to this theory. The disengagement theory also emphasizes that it furnishes a means of transfer of knowledge from older generation to the younger generation. in terms of power, in terms of property, in terms of knowledge, in terms of wisdom, the older adults believe that now their age has been come to end and they have to transfer all these to their younger generations for the effective functioning of the rest of their lives. Therefore, the older adults limit themselves in terms of their age and give way to the younger generations. Hence, this is more satisfying for both the society as well as the older adult, since there is a mutual understanding. Hence, we cannot say that the older people are not satisfied, but they are more satisfied being isolated from the society according to this theory. According to this theory, it is postulated that the successful aging is best possible by abandoning certain social roles and responsibilities. Therefore, if you want to find out an individual having a successful adjustment to his aging process, it is important to consider that the individual should abandon the previous activities that he has been performing. According to this theory is also culture independent concept. All cultures differs, whereas in this particular theory, this theory can be applied to different cultures, but at the same time not every culture has a tendency to develop disengagement with the society. Maybe some people have disengagement at the later years of the life, maybe at the age of 70 or 80, but some old people during the 60s and 70s may still continue a social association with the social world. Therefore, it is culture related and it is culturally relevant. The most important strength of this theory is that it is mutually benefiting the society as well as the older adult. As we have discussed earlier, in terms of the old people, they are now able to guide, or being a mentor, they are able to help the younger generations, and at the same time the society is also welcoming the newer generation and giving a pace to the older adults. Therefore, it is mutually beneficial. Now, the weakness point is that in this particular theory, it fails to establish that some people may still want to continue to associate themselves with the social world, but it happens that the individual in this particular theory disengages, whereas the other individuals who have been playing an active role during their middle age may still continue to be a social butterfly even at their 70s. So, we cannot conclude, or we cannot say that disengagement begins at a particular stage of life and then it stops. So, some people, it is individualistic, therefore, we cannot assume that all older people have a tendency to develop disengagement in their lives. Therefore, this theory particularly has been largely discounted and marked down by most of the gerontologists. Hence, many people do not agree with this theory, and this theory has been very controversial, and most of them do not agree with this theory. Now, we come to the another important older perspective of aging, and this particular theory is a contrast to the previous theory, that is disengagement theory. So, now we are going to discuss about the theory of activity. The theory of activity, also referred to as normal aging or implicit theory of aging, and sometimes lay theory of aging, developed by Robert Havighurst in the year 1960s. Often this particular theory is a controversial or contrary to the disengagement theory. Let us see how. Activity theory indicates that people who have been active throughout their life have a tendency to remain active even in their later years. So, it is very beneficial for the older adult to engage himself in the later years with respect to their aging process and adjustment to the aging process. When we say activity, it can be a physical activity or an intellectual or a mental activity. So, it is very appreciated that the older adults, according to this theory, are engaged in a particular activity, whether a physical activity that involves in a social interaction or any activity related in terms of performing an act, in terms of sports, in terms of developing a skill. And when you talk about intellectual capacity building, we can also consider older people still engaging in certain professional acts. So, therefore, it is important that it is the older adult should engage into certain social roles throughout their life in order to build up their self-esteem and self-concept. According to this theory, it says that if the older adult is unable to develop, or if the individual is unable to maintain the previous activities, now it is the point to develop new hobbies, new interest among the older adults, so that they can maintain their active aging properly. The new interest and hobbies could be many. If the individual has been enjoying a particular activity during their middle years, may not find it interesting in the later years. So, there is a need to shift in their interest. So, if the individual was not able to engage in a particular activity, say for example, if they are not happy in reading a book, they may have interaction with younger generations, they may shift their hobbies in associating themselves with a similar club or similar members of the same age group. So, there should be a shift in their interests and roles. The activity theory perspectives has three assumptions in which they say that it is better to be active than inactive. The second assumption is that it is better to be happy than unhappy. And the third is it is the older individual who is the best judge of his or her own thoughts and activities in achieving happiness. Therefore, all these three assumptions are in line with the activity theory, which emphasizes the individual's role related activities in order to maintain a healthy later life. The research also says that there is a positive relationship between a person's level of ability and activity and life satisfaction. So, if you consider an old person being happy at an older age, it is quite indicative that there is a positive correlation between the individual's previous activities and the present life satisfaction. Therefore, it in turn facilitates and postulates there is an increase in his self-esteem. And this self-esteem and self-concept further increases the individual's adjustment to later life. As we have discussed that in activity theory, if the individual is unable to shift his activities or unable to develop new interest or hobbies, it is very difficult for the individual to adjust to the later life. Therefore, it is very important that there is an emphasis of role change in this particular theory. It emphasizes that the older people needs role change. Now, role change can be many. The individual may develop being a mentor or a pool of wisdom to the younger generation, where they can benefit from the older people. The theory also emphasizes that during the middle age, when the individual is involved in certain active role plays, it is important that this should be maintained irrespective of the individual being old. So, it is emphasized that even the elderly is at the verge of old age, it is very important that this older person should forget that he is old and maintain that he is still a middle aged person and continue his activities till the later age. The activity theory also focuses on the individual's health. Now, those days there were no much medical advancement in the health of the elderly people, but now with the advancement of the medical research, it has become very possible for the older people to have a better health quality of life. Therefore, the medical research also point out that there is an importance of remaining socially involved. So, as the individual's health is good, there is a possibility of sustaining a positive and healthy social activities in the society. Now, here we are going to emphasize on the mental aspects of the older people. So far as the physical health of the individual is good, the individuals are able to engage themselves in the social world. But if it is not the same case with the mental health of the individual, now the deterioration is quite progressive. When we say mental aspects of the individual, it is the cognitive abilities of the individual. We may consider the learning of the individual, memory and problem solving, intelligence. All these cognitive faculties are very, very important, and there is also a decline in the mental capacities of the elderly, and there is a deterioration which is most rapid among those who withdraw from the social interaction. So, this is very essential in order to maintain a positive mental well-being and to have an effective cognitive functioning. The social interaction is very, very essential among the elderly. Otherwise, the mental deterioration is very, very rapid. Therefore, when we say social interaction and when we say that there is a need to enhance the cognitive functioning, it is the social interaction. Now, the social interaction could be making friends or interacting with younger generation or interacting with the same age group generations, or sometimes increased use of internet can also keep touch with the family members, so that it enhances the individual's physical as well as mental well-being. One of the biggest strength of this particular activity theory is that this theory is applicable for a stable post-industrial society. When we say post-industrial society, it is the developed society where there is a lot of revolution, there is a lot of advancement, there is a technological advancement, where people can still continue to work, engage themselves in certain activities which they are interested in. Therefore, this offers its older members many opportunities for meaningful participation in the social world. And the most weakness is that some aging individuals cannot maintain social relationships, and sometimes there is a problem with the individual's lifestyles. So, there is also limited financial limitations, or sometimes there is a functional limitations or lack of desire to do so. So, many individuals may not be interested in engaging themselves anymore, and they want to allow the younger generations, or they want to give way to the younger generations. Therefore, they limit themselves. So, this could be one of the weakness of the theory. Now, after the two important popular older perspectives, that is on disengagement theory and activity theory, now we are going to shift to the more recent theoretical perspectives of theories of aging, and this is the continuity theory. The continuity theory is proposed by Havinghurst and his colleagues, and this is in reaction to the disengagement theory. It believes, this theory, the theory of continuity, believes that the individual's personality, the individual's values, the individual's attitudes and behaviors remain constant throughout the individual's later years. Now, this is very, very important to understand, because in a continuity perspective, they believe that successful aging depends on the individual's ability to perceive, maintain and continue certain activities which are dependent on their behaviors. The continuity theory of aging strongly believes that personality, values, morals, preferences, role activity and basic patterns of behaviors are consistent throughout the individual's life, regardless of the life's challenges one encounters. Say for example, in an individual's life, there may be many ups and downs, there may be gains, there may be failures, but at the same time it is strongly believed that the individual's pattern of behaviors, pattern of personalities remain constant. So, it is very, very beneficial for the individuals to adjust to the later years for having a constant stable personality traits. I would like to quote an example here. Say for example, a 20-year-old young adult may be very sociable and he is able to interact with everybody, and he is very extrovert in his personality. Now, we can expect, according to continuity theory, that even if the individual comes to the age of 70 years, he is still a sociable person because of his stable personality traits. He is now able to, he can continue to be sociable even in his later years. On the contrary, if you observe 25-year-old adult who is very depressed, isolated and lonely, there is a possibility of continuing the same possible traits even in the later years by disengagement or in terms of social isolation, and sometimes there is a depression that is still continued. So, therefore, it is very, very essential that according to this theory, the stable traits of the individual remains consistent. We can say that this theory has built up and modified the activity theory, because if you compare in activity theory, there is a emphasis of more activity related orientation among the individuals, so that they are associated with the social world. But here in continuity theory, it is important to maintain and continue the basic personality traits and behavior patterns throughout their later years. Therefore, it is modification of the activity theory. I would say that this continuity theory is very, very helpful among older people in order to cope with the aging problems, because one way to predict how an individual will adjust to being old is to examine how that individual has adjusted to the changes throughout the life. Thus, in this perspective, the reminiscence therapy, that means being nostalgic, sometimes is quite helpful for the older adults to adjust themselves in the later years. Sometimes individuals are happy in remembering the past memories, they become nostalgic and they want to remind themselves how they behaved during their younger period, and so that they are quite able to adapt to the present aging process. We have so far learnt that there are a few theories that focuses on the individuals, especially the older individuals, adjustment to aging process. So, here we discussed about three important theoretical perspectives. The first one was disengagement theory, the second one was activity theory, and the third one was continuity theory. Each theory differs in their own way. The disengagement theory is considered to be one of the popular, controversial and the older perspective of successful aging, where it is discussed that it postulates that the individual tries to withdraw from the society, and the society also welcomes the individual's withdrawal from the social interaction. So, therefore, there is a mutual understanding of withdrawal from the society as well as the individual. Now, we come to the activity theory, which focuses that, which emphasizes on the individual's social interaction even in the later years. So, there is a welcome to the individuals, especially the older individuals here we are talking about. There is a welcome from the social world. They appreciate the involvement of the elderly people in terms of a role change that they expect in the society. The third and the more recent perspective discusses that the personality traits, the attitudes and the interests, the values and the morals that the older people have during the middle age also continues even in the later years in order to have a better successful aging. Therefore, all these three differ from each other, but at the same time these are all culture specific, and sometimes at different cultures all these three factors can be varied.